Elvis Raider here, and I'm going to have a discussion piece for today, and it's not going to be a fun one because it's going to touch into the cultural war thing and how activists are trying to influence and shape how our hobbies are. Honestly, I'm just a guy who just likes to game. I like storytelling. I like anime. This more political BS, I really don't like to get into because we got enough of this in our lives, and our hobbies is a form of escapism so that we don't have to worry about that. And I kind of wanted the channel to be that way too, but I'm not sure if I can because, like in the movie with Rambo First Blood, they drew first blood. So we have to defend our hobbies from activists from on both sides of the political aisle because politics is downstream of culture, and if you influence culture you can influence politics, or more specifically the shaping of someone who isn't quite politically aware through culture to help shape the way they see politics and go about it. So it's like from Dune, he who controls the spice controls the universe. These cultural markets want to shape culture through entertainment, our hobbies, and everything to shape the future political landscape. And it's even got to the point where if you want to try to remain apolitical, you are now bad. Sadly, for the gaming and anime industries, this is done extremely heavy handed because right now they're the most cultural significance within the entertainment industry. So, first, we're going to look at this article from Game Developer because the Game Developer Conference happened not long ago. So, let's talk about this article here from Game Developer because the Game Developer Conference happened recently, and GLAD had a talking panel there apparently. So it wasn't enough for GLAD to have all this influence within the reward shows for Hollywood and everything and TV. They now want to go after gaming, but the thing is they have been pushing their agendas and their political activism within gaming for 15 years now. But based on this article, they make it sound like they haven't. It really reads like an article from 2012. And one of the quotes here is there's really no shortage of ways you can make your game feel inclusive. You just have to have the willpower to do it. A good place to start is to ask yourself, do our LGBTQ players feel seen and valued? And if you don't have an answer for that, you might have some work to do. Here's the thing. Here's the answer to that. Video games are not meant for the players to feel seen or valued. Video games are a form of escapism that's meant to enjoy, or in cases of puzzle games like Tetris, to stimulate your problem solving. They're there to give you a challenge or for you to simply enjoy. They are not there to be political narratives. So that way, people who are into the identity politics can see their political beliefs said back to them from a video game character. Now, if you are of the LGBTQ, you are welcome here on my channel. I have no problem with for anyone who is like that. But I will tell you, these groups are not in place to serve people like you for the betterment of society. They're there to mostly push socialist type economic views and to get donation money to donate to political candidates. They are a propaganda and donation money machine. And I'm a product of the 90s and early 2000s where we were cool with everyone. We didn't care. But when people started to become like that, these groups weren't really getting money back then. So they had to create a divide in order to profit more. There are video games and stories that are aimed at the LGBTQ that are very good and well done. But you'll mostly see these in indie games, like the video I did not long, well, actually a long time ago. Dang, doesn't feel that way. But like my Femboy roommate, I plan to keep up with that game developer and see how well he does because I support independent creators. Now, would they push some talking points from people like Glad here and from the DEI slop type stuff? Yes, but that's aimed to that audience. It's not the same thing as taking an existing IP like Dragon Age and creating Belguard, which you usurp everything that actually make those games good just to push a political narrative to preach and lecture everyone. But let's continue with this article for a little bit because they talk about the GLAAD's gaming report that they made, where the data focus analysis of video games and audience over recent years with a focus on the LGBTQ community. And you can already tell that this report is going to be full of bogus data because it's going to skew one way. It's done by GLAAD, but let's see what they say. Okay, so this is one that was released back in 2024. So if I remember correctly, yeah, this is a bogus report. Because it says here the report 17% of gaming audience identifies as LGBTQ. Now, that's probably a higher number than it should be because it is done by GLAAD. So they're going to have it higher based on that. And the fact that it's only 17% is kind of telling because it's a GLAAD data report and they can only get 17%. The gaming audience identified as LGBTQ and Gen Z audience are growing. This is false. We already have more recent reports showing that Gen Z plays less games and buys less games than previous generations. So the only games that they really are playing are free games like Fortnite, Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, and probably gacha games as well. And they're trying to kind of gaslight you into saying that there is a potential 17% of sales increase you can get if you throw in authentic LBG characters within a game. So they're pushing the mythical modern day audience. And here's the thing, it does not work. We've seen plenty games flop over and over again that pushes the DEI into games. As they say, the proof is in the pudding. And they try to say that they busted a myth with this stuff, saying that it's a myth that queer content will alienate most players. Here's the thing, it normally wouldn't if it was done organically. In other words, it's quite natural. But when you're shoehorning it into everything, you can clearly tell there's an agenda, even though they lied about it. And then they admitted to it to these companies saying, oh, well, you'll get more investors' money if you have, it'll affect your ESG score so you can get more money. So they're trying to say that they busted a common myth before moving on, that myth being that queer representation only detracts from non-LGBTQ players. But really, it does nowadays. Because when they see a queer character, like, oh, they did this for DEI reasons, it's going to be bad. Because they put these groups ahead of good gameplay and an actual story narrative. And this part right here is that now I do want to note that we do have those who said that they'll be less likely to buy. However, research found that the majority of detractors, you can already tell by the wording of this, that they're just putting the political spin on everything, are generally older, spend less money, and spend less time on games. This is completely false because it's the millennials and the later Gen Xers that are playing video games heavily. We're the ones spending the most money on it because we actually have jobs to buy games. And the less time on games is mostly for the guys who got families and usually a younger children that needs a lot of attention to. and they work long hours, so they really don't have that much time. But they also wouldn't be categorized as actual gamers. That's like saying that women make 50% of or over 50% of gamers because they're playing Candy Crush on their phone. They're not actually gamers. So they don't belong in the category of gamers. So this part of the video has already gone far too long. So these are the people that we have to really work against within the industry to really push back against. You're going to have people on social media trying to gaslight you about stuff like this, that, oh, there's no agenda. And there's also going to be content creators as well. It's either because they hold these political views or they're grifters trying to cash in on it. Now, for the anime side of things, luckily, the Japanese are kind of seeing how some of it's affecting them now, especially with the localizers. And I remember recently there was a localizer that got in trouble because they were trying to tell people to harass and bully the Japanese companies to forcefully put the woke stuff into games, anime, manga natively. I think they got fired from their job, but Square Enix even had a localizer like that, a lead localizer like that, on their team for Final Fantasy XIV, which I do not know if that one got fired, but she did get removed from her position of lead localizer. So from this article from Niche Gamer, the Chun-Li creator worries about woke influence censorship on anime. And his real name's like Akira. So it says here, so he expresses concern over anime trying to appeal to Westerners and more specifically progressive or woke Western culture, which this has been going on for since 2010, if maybe longer. So kind of late to the party, pal, but at least you got there. It's a bit worrying that the woke movement seems poised to sweep through the anime industry all at once. It's not all at once. They've been doing this for a long time. Now, this guy, he worked with Capcom, and he, like I said, he's the Chun-Li artist, but he's worked on other things as well. Now, someone replied to him saying that he previously designed a Turn A Gundam character that who the user describes as a black femboy. And then the user added they hope someone as creative as him rejects the conservative and reactionary mindset. I'm old enough to remember where even the liberal mindset was against woke stuff. Yeah, when it comes to progressive politics. He responded to the user saying, I simply follow the work. I never impose my own political views on it. And people like this, they cannot understand how to do a creative work without imposing their own political views upon it. And I also saw where someone was trying to gaslight him in his tweet saying that that's a misconception. In fact, it's the opposite of the woke people who are causing most of the censorship issues. It's the religious. They throw money at certain politicians and push to ban anything sexual at all. So the gaslighting here is them trying to say, oh no, it's not the woke people. It most definitely is. Throughout gaming and anime, these people have been trying to censor it and trying to censor at the source. Most of them call anime, people who like anime, PDF files. That anyone who likes it should be on a list, a registry. And the religious, they're mostly hinting back to the moral panic. And I remember that I was a kid when Pokemon was on the scene, and there was a lot of people saying, "Oh, these are demons. Pokemon's going to get you to worship the devil." Well, here's the thing. There was also religious people pushing back on that, going, "No, it's just a kid's show. It's a kid's game. Leave them alone." And you still have people like that today, but they're a very small portion. And even back then, they had no power. They couldn't change anything. They didn't really do anything other than to get people to dislike them for being prudes. And the woke people, they do want to ban sexual things. They just don't want to ban the things that they like. But the stuff they don't like, such as straight stuff, no go. You put a sexy woman on the front page of something? Nope, gotta take that off. You got some Mortal Kombat characters that look too sexy, and a little bit too violent? You gotta take that out. Look what happened to Mortal Kombat 11. They completely redesigned every female character to be less sexually appealing than what they were like in Mortal Kombat 9. So no, do not let these people try to gaslight you into this. They are the ones who force the awful body type A and B. And then they'll say, why do you oppose this change to A and B? It's insignificant. It doesn't matter. Why are you so upset about it? And then when another game company, Lords of the Fallen, puts back male and female, they lose their shit. Well, if it wasn't so important, if it didn't matter, if it was an insignificant change, why are you getting mad at it? That's being changed back to as it should be. It's all there to put their activist agenda. But this article from Niche Gamer also goes on to show where localizers have been changing things, where Western influence has been increasingly pressuring anime and artists to censor their work to adhere by to Westerners. Artwork platforms was even forced to censor users based on international laws. So not on Japanese laws where this platform originates from. A lot of anime and manga regularly get censored to cover up sexual themes, while progressive things like non-binary gender made into official localizations. These people will lie to your face without hesitation and will not lose sleep about it. They do not see themselves as being dishonest at all. And some even rewrote cross-dressing men into full trans men. Here's the thing. They're trying to get rid of anything like femboys or cross-dressers and turn them into trans because they're doing a heavy push on the trans identity at the moment. And for the sake of tomboys and femboys, we need to push back on that. Another noticeable example of anime influence by Westerners has been localizers injecting nonsensical lines or themes, or even completely rewriting the subtitle or English dub. And I remember this change that they made in Prison School, which is a manga that I really liked and enjoyed. The ending was terrible though. The guy does great work and he starts off good, but his endings are terrible. But anyways, as it shows here in the line that the localizer changed was, you guys stick up your ass, or are you one of those dumbass Gamergate creep shows? And fans pointed out the line was changed completely from the original content, and the writer laughed at criticism. And the show's Western publisher ended up dissing themselves from the writer. Funimation would soon later double down on these type of localizers and allow them to put in whatever they wanted to. The article ends here with the character designer of Chun-Li saying, "Woke and all that is the new American beauty, isn't it? You Americans need to take it easy. You're going to wear yourself out." And it's true. I mean, it has been worn out, but they're not going to give it up yet. And these are the people that we have to defend ourselves against in anime and manga. I know you just want to read your manga, watch your anime, play your games, but we have to start pushing back against these people. We actually had to actively be doing something. Whether it is just on social media, respectively pushing back against this type of stuff to the game studios, production companies that put out this stuff. And we need to get involved as well. We need more people who want to be game developers or localizers themselves who will not push for their political activism in the games or anime and just do the work, entertain people. Because we've already seen that there are people in there that just wants to push their activism who got into these positions, into these industries just solely for that. So it will take people pushing against it to go into these fields to remove this cancer from our hobbies. Okay, now this last article I want to touch on is from the UNESCO. And the UN, especially I want to say around the 2015 period, I could be wrong, went after, could have been the 24 actually. Yeah, somewhere around like the 2014 or 2015 period, the UN kind of was trying to regulate manga and anime, saying that it was violence against women and children and should be regulated outside of Japan, and Japan should regulate it within its own country. I remember signing a petition against that resolution or whatever it was. And recently here, they had a manga artist speak to the UNESCO, and I guess in a way to try to represent, the manga industry of Japan, like, hey, we're not really like that. Shirama, based on this article, is most famous for her manga series Witch Hat Atelier. And I actually think I've seen a little bit of this, but I didn't quite read it all. Or I saw it a long time ago, but didn't keep up with it. But it says here so most of this article is her talking about how to become manga artist. And from the looks of it, I don't really see anything off or quite off putting. And the reason why I'm looking at this is because I saw a Chibi review video of him talking about the company that published this works and how they were saying that this author sat down with the UN. He was a little concerned, or I wouldn't really use the word outrage, but he was kind of concerned why a manga artist would sit down with the UN when the UN has so heavily pursued to censor manga in Japan, and hope that with Japan trying to make anime and manga push it into the global market, that they could be going to allow some of the censorship and being regulated, conforming to the UN in order to get that global appeal, which in fact would make the works less Japanese and I would say less appealing as well. Since the UN was pushing the violence against women, I do see here a little bit like yourself, more and more women have managed to make their mark in this traditionally male dominated field. How do you express this shift? I think this is the question and answer that Chibi kind of had a issue with, because there has been female manga artists since the 70s. There you have lots of popular work, like I think he showed, Sailor Moon, Inuyasha, Full Metal Alchemist. That was I think when I was like 20 or 19, that was like the biggest manga, especially the anime when it came out. She says here that the Japanese manga artists' work is somewhat special environment. Many creators do not use their real names, and I think this has made it possible for many women to be very active. Here's the thing: both men and women do this because manga artists like to keep their lives private. That's the reason why a lot of them, if they do give an interview, their face is blurry or there's a black bar across it, or they're wearing a mask, trying to conceal their identity as much as possible because they are working underneath a pen name. And she even says why this is like saying that it allows them to make it easier to express one's feelings openly, including deeper emotions or cries from the heart. This way they can express themselves without worrying getting a whole lot of backlash against readers and have like personal threats or whatever done to them. But saying that may be one reason why there's so many women manga artists today, and why it feels as their numbers are continuing to grow. Because here's the thing: you know that they're women. Like, it doesn't conceal their, unless they actively try to, which I don't really see many of them do. But unless they try to conceal their gender, having a different pen name really won't do that. I mean, so having a different pen name, but yet you're still showing that you're a woman or a man, doesn't really have the effect that she's claiming. Because now I could be wrong. I'm not from Japan. I've never been to Japan. Maybe the culture there is a little bit different where they may do look down on women, but I really doubt that. There are too many openly female manga artists from a long period of time that has been outspoken about who they are and are very successful. So I don't see that being a case. So the rest of this article just really talks about her work, her overseas work, the success of her manga series, and a little bit about the art style. So really, there's nothing here in this article I would say is very concerning. Nothing that anyone should really worry about in manga being censored in Japan or anything like that. I don't see none of that. So I'm going to come out kind of like defending the artist. I think her views is just fine. Yeah, I think the position of the women in manga is a little not true, or maybe she just didn't express it fully. But I think I am going to check out this manga series though. Give it a read, do a review on it. Now I know I already promised y'all one review already that I didn't deliver on, which I am. I'm going to actually do the thing I'm talking about in this video. I am going to be a content creator that is defending our hobby, that is going to push back when I need to, but that will not be the focus. There are plenty other content creators that are the canary in the coal mine when it comes to woke games and media. Now, there'll be plenty out there that'll get it wrong, or they're just in it for the grift. But the ones that are honest, but they do get it wrong a little bit, just keep them honest. Let them know when they get something wrong, you know, because gameplay is king. The story narrative is secondary, but you really do need a good story narrative as well if it's a story type game. But you can have the best story in the world, but if the gameplay is crappy, no one will play it. Because you can have a bad story, but a really good gameplay, and people will excuse the bad story for a really good game. So I'm going to start pumping out videos of gameplay reviews, anime, manga reviews, some discussion pieces, news, some more figurine unboxing videos, and some videos on art and novels. Our hobbies are for everyone. Anyone can enjoy this stuff. But if you try to co-opt it into your political agendas, we will now be pushing back. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I know it may seem hopeless with all the institutions supporting the political activists, but we're going to do that. We're going to try to fight back and keep our hobby. This has been Hopeless Raider. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you in the next video.